is 6:15. I'm going to do a roll call for attendance. Glenn Skirka. Tony Raposo. Jamie LeBlanc.
Here.
Jen Ludwig.
Here.
And myself, Mike Sakosha, here. I'm going to move on to item number 3 on the minutes of the meeting, which is approval of minutes of meetings for 3.1, which is November 12th, 2020. 3.2, which is March 10th, 2021. 3.3, which is March 18th, 2021. Could I have a motion, please?
I'll make a
We need
motion.
to table the first one, because I was not part of that meeting.
Before you actually came on, Jamie, we talked with the town manager in regards to this, and as long as we have a 1-0 vote, we're able to vote on that so that we can get through
Okay.
we can get through that and get old business off the table from back then. So and we did have a conversation with Dave D'Agostino in regards to having a quorum with 3 people, since the subcommittee is only made up of 5 people. So it'll depend on from each meeting to each meeting as to what we have as a quorum, I guess. So pertaining to important business and household business. So I'll take that I'll take that motion. Let's bring that to a vote. Jen?
Yes.
Myself, aye. And Jamie?
Yes.
All right. So that concludes the approval of the minutes. They've been passed and moved on from. Let's move on to the sewer tie-in request, which is discussion and vote. This would be for the Oaks at East Shore Subdivision, Tyoke Avenue, AP 23, lots 47 and 47.1, and AP 32, lot 152. Do we have somebody from?
Yes. Hi, good
represent-
evening. Again, how are you?
Good, yourself. How's it going this evening?
Good.
You've only been waiting. You've only been waiting 3 sessions for this to
I
happen.
know, that's all
Well-
right.
Welcome to be able to speak.
Thank you. Members of the subcommittee, my name is William Lavery Jr., project manager with Joe Casali Engineering, representing Du Bois Building Company or Tyoke Land Company for this project. I don't know who has control of the screen, but I have a very quick PowerPoint that can just convey what we're actually doing. If I could share my screen.
You should be able to now, Mr. Laver.
Thank you. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, great. So the Oaks at East Shore is a 33 lot major subdivision in the town. Where we're located, Tyoke Avenue, Old North Road, Rawlinson Drive, East Shore Drive, and then our parcels consist of AP 32 lot 152, AP 23 lot 47, and lot 47.001. Combined, we're roughly 26.5 acres. There's an existing residential structure that's proposed to be raised, and we actually have the town gravity sewer system that bifurcates our parcel. It starts over to handle the Tyoke Elementary School and what's not shown on this aerial, but the Village at East Shore development here. The gravity sewer runs through our parcel, and as we zoom out through the Coventry Housing Authority, eventually to Tyoke, where it goes to the West Warwick Treatment Center. Our proposal, 23 single-family home lots, the majority of them 3-bedroom. We were before the subcommittee June 2019 for capacity, 12,200 gallons per day average flow, and 50,000 gallons, 50,467 peak flow, which we received approval at that hearing. Since then, we've gone through the land development process and achieved all of the other local and state permits, and specifically for our sewer tie-in, because of the topography on the lot, we do have a handful of parcels that are gravity sewer E1 pumps. Those will tie into conventional gravity sewer main that's proposed to connect into that existing sewer trunk line that runs through our parcel. And that's it, to basically just go over the quick sewer portion of the project. And we've gone through the process with the town engineer, Bruce. I think we've addressed all of his comments, and I think this is the last piece of the puzzle before we can get our final plan approval.
Okay. Bruce, do you have any comments in regards to this?
No, they've addressed all of my technical comments.
I guess the only question I have, I guess, is, and this is probably a Bruce and Monique question, is how did we come up with the 13,997.80 per lot?
Sure, so that's the, it's based on the assessment for vacant land, which would be due, if, when the applicant intends to connect. So that's what's called an initial assessment. So that's an assessment per lot for the vacant land. And that assessment would be due prior to any certificate of occupancy permits that would be issued. Now, the final assessment for the whole development will be based on the number of bedrooms that are actually built, which we don't know at this time.
Right.
That initial assessment is based on vacant land, but the final assessment will be built on, based on the developed, what's developed.
The number that's here for the, I'm sorry, the number that's here for the 13,997, that's based off collaborative of all of the lots that are being built, and that's how you arrived at this calculation?
Well, that's per lot.
Yeah.
There are 3 vacant lots, and that's per lot. So the total is around 41,000 and change for the initial assessment.
Okay.
And then the final assessment is determined by the number of bedrooms. And yeah.
So when would that 41,000 need to be paid prior to occupancy of the first structure?
Yep. Yeah, if Monique is still here, she could answer that probably better. But,
Yeah, basically what happens is we do an initial assessment for each of the parent parcels. Those would need to be paid before the parent parcel is no longer in existence anymore. So it would need to be paid before the COs are issued and the parcel is broken up. Because once they're broken up, if the parent parcel doesn't exist, how do I collect it? So
then it needs to be paid before the lots are recorded.
Recording, yeah.
And then each of the betterments would be added once we know how many bedrooms are per house.
Okay. The other question I have, I guess, in regards to the betterments, that's figured on a 75% reduction, correct?
Correct.
Because of the infrastructure that the Oaks would be installing in the road and on the property for themselves
Correct.
before they turn it over to the town.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that was clear. Does anybody on the board have any questions in regards to that?
Member Sakosha, can you say that last part one more time? What is DuBois doing for the betterment? Is there something being done to the road?
So what happens is this, when in the town of Coventry, what we do is we give a credit to the developer of 75% in regards to each parcel, because they're the ones that are installing the water, the sewer, the road, the curbing. They're doing the infrastructure. And then once that road is complete and substantially complete, the developer turns the road over to the town at some point in time. But they're the ones that have incurred the cost to install that infrastructure within the roadway. So as we're in other situations throughout town, we have a sewer pipe going by somebody's house and all they have to do is tie onto it because the town hired a contractor to install the main line throughout town and restore the road that already exists. In this situation, it's a new road that's being developed and turned over to the town. So the developer pays the upfront cost in regards to it. So the benefit of that is that the new homeowner that's buying the 3-bedroom house, part of their cost of buying a
Purchase
house,
price, yeah.
right, purchase price, part of that assessment fee has already been paid through the developer. So they're entitled to a staggering decrease in amount that they actually owe as the homeowner of the property, even though it's already been paid. So
And if I can just make sure I understand the last part. So with the new homes, is it that the resident who ends up purchasing the home has to pay the betterment assessment while the original assessment on that, the 41,000 we were just talking about earlier, that's paid by the builder? Or is this also wrapped into the purchase price and it's paid at once?
the builder pays the $41,000 because that's part of the lot of the infrastructure and the advancement of the development being created, along with the calculations that they provided for water usage on the houses that are going to be added into this development. So that number offsets the betterment amount for when the purchaser purchases the house. So
Okay.
And is there an additional fee for when a building permit is pulled for each lot
there is,
for the sewer?
correct.
Okay. So there's this upfront fee, then there's a fee for when you get your building permit for each lot, and then the new homeowner pays an assessment fee.
In this
Yes.
case, it'll be a betterment fee, correct, Bruce? Not really.
Yes, it'll be a betterment assessment. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
And can I just ask, when does that betterment assessment bill get mailed?
It will happen after the CO is issued. So if a house is completed right now, I do my billing in September, so they can expect a betterment assessment that, an installment bill in September. As soon as I know a house is being built and I know the number of bedrooms, I will add a deferred assessment so that it at least appears on any MLC, a municipal lien certificate, so everyone is aware of how much it's going to be.
Okay, and then this might be a question for Mr. Marchant, but kind of goes back to previous discussion that we were having. Is the town council responsible for signing off on all assessments? I think we need to get an answer on that. But we don't need to.
My understanding is that the town council approved the ordinance that sets the assessments. And so you don't have to approve the assessments with each successive project because it's going to follow the formula in the ordinance. And the assessments vary from project to project based on the building cost of each project. Does that make sense?
It does. Then my follow-up question to that would be then why on Arnold Road and Hazard Street did the town council have to sign up on those assessments?
My understanding was that they were signing off on the tie-in. The assessments had already been incurred and approved.
Okay, that's probably a discussion for a different time. Okay, I appreciate the insight though. And thank you, Monique, for answering the question on the betterment.
I have a further question to Mr. Lavery.
Yes.
Are these homeowners aware that they're going to get the betterment assessment?
I don't know on my end. That would be with the developer, and knowing that he's done multiple of these in town, I'm sure he is aware of, unless that's a new thing that I'm not aware of, but I don't believe so.
I believe it's a new thing because the past developments that this particular developer has done is in an area that doesn't have accessibility to sewers.
Yeah, like my
Correct.
own. So
You're right. And I worked on them. Yeah, you're right.
yeah. So
Okay.
I'm also I'm in the Oaks off of Teakwood West.
Yep.
So not the 76 houses back here are not anywhere near a sewer line.
Yes,
So,
I know. I designed every one of the septic systems and I
okay.
forgot about it. Yeah.
Is that maybe a request we can, this isn't probably a responsibility of the subcommittee, but maybe just for our citizens or these people who are about to be our citizens here. Is it something we can mention so that they're aware of this, to let the builder know? It would be probably helpful that they know they're going to get this. Is that something we can, and actually maybe it's something, Ben, Mr. Marchant, can we talk offline on how we might do something like that, a communication with the builder? I don't know if that might go through planning and development, but something like that.
That
Yeah, of
could
course.
probably be added to the application process for the sewer design. Just a table of fees to be expected.
Right.
I
You know, we
just
should
saw
probably
it
have
on
a,
my end.
we should probably have a separate application for sewer extensions. You know, in that we could, you know, have a separate checklist or separate statements where, you know, we could explain how the assessments will be distributed or assessed.
This conversation is all part of the task that the administrative officer has been assigned to build a sewer program
Yeah.
and have all of these considerations mapped out.
Okay, great. Yeah, obviously I don't want 33 families to show up at our next sewer committee saying,
Well,
I didn't know I was going to have this assessment after everything.
these are all new homes, right?
Yeah, these are
Yes.
all new homes.
So the buyer will already be.
It'll all
incurring
be
that.
disclosed when they
It'll be part of the
purchase.
disclosures, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, some people don't always read disclosures, so sometimes if it's added as some better language somewhere so that they could see it highlighted in
Yeah.
red or yellow somewhere,
Highlighted.
you know,
Can I interject?
it would, sure.
I do, as soon as I know the number of bedrooms on a house, it doesn't have to have a CO. I do put a deferred assessment on there. So it appears on any municipal lien certificate, and a municipal lien certificate is always pulled prior to a sale. And attorneys constantly email me requesting information based on
Somebody's
the
playing
sale.
music. Thank you.
No, sorry, I had a hospital calling me, sorry. The lawyers all email me wanting to know if there are assessments prior to sales, and I do answer them. I do look it up. If there is any deferred assessment, I do make sure it's on an MLC so a homeowner is aware.
Monique, I have two other questions for you. Before
I
we
would almost think ideally you could roll these assessments into the sale price of the house and rather than set it out separately, but I'm not familiar with the requirements around here, so maybe.
Well, just to kind of answer that question, because I do some building throughout town and throughout the state, and I've seen other builders where they've built developments like this. And I'm not going to mention their names, but they're good developers, and some people think they're good, some people think they're bad. But I know that some of the selling features of them selling their houses in the past or their condo units, they've thrown in the condo fee into the whole sale, and it's taking care of the entire balance, which is nice for the town. And it's nice for the purchaser because then it's eliminated. Nobody has to worry about it anymore. So that would be one thing to, I guess, to make a reference to, if it's possible. If you know, if it's going to make or break the deal on them selling the house, then I'm sure that they're not inclined to make that part of the deal. So whoever buys it would obviously have to make the deal themselves. The question that I had for Monique was in regards to the betterment assessments that you're going to send out. You say that they come out in September, correct?
The first installment, if the house is built and I have a CO,
Okay.
the
So
first installment will happen.
If you don't have let's say that this project were to start next month and you had a couple houses, they would obviously get built out by September. If you
Right.
had 10 houses that were completed after September, would they not receive their betterment assessment until the following September?
It would depend. You have to give people time to make their payment. I do send out supplemental bills. If the houses were not finished, say, until February of next year, yes, they would not get their first installment due until September. And that's basically out of fairness because we bill interest once a year. And you have to give all the taxpayers the same amount of time to try to get as much paid on that assessment so they don't get charged interest. I bill
Okay.
interest based on the balance as of August 31st. So to tell one homeowner, you have from February to August to make your payments and make any extra payments you want, where other homeowners had from September, October, November, December, it's not fair. So we kind of have a cutoff to make sure that it's fair for all the taxpayers.
So do you try to keep that in the calendar year, the interest
Yes.
that you're
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah, we try to keep it like, I'll do another set of supplementals for anybody that was finished maybe through November, and I'll get those out. And then
Yeah.
because our due dates are October, January, April, and July. So if I build someone out in February, I would have to ask them for 3 quarters by April. That's, that could
Right.
be a big nut for somebody who's not.
That could be a big number.
Right.
I'm only asking that because I just want to make sure that this is a new development that's going in. And like Jen mentioned, we don't want to have 33 people here in 8 months from now screaming at us saying, well, we didn't really know that that's how we were going to get billed. We want to be able to have answers and understand how the flow of that
Yeah.
works. So
No,
I appreciate it.
understandable. We definitely try to make sure that we don't make it difficult for the taxpayers and that we're not asking them for too much money at once. So we do have a cutoff where it's like, okay, now it's going to go to the next September and they'll know the bill is coming.
All right.
I have 2 comments, if you don't mind. I don't know if this is for Monique or Mr. Lavery, but the homeowners, they also need to know about the usage fees as well. I don't know when that's disclosed because that's technically not billed until they actually start using it. I just wanted to make sure that these homeowners are aware of the user fee. That was comment number 1. Comment number 2, Mr. Lavery, has a traffic study been done related to this development?
Yes, a full traffic study was done and presented to the planning board for master and preliminary plan.
Okay, perfect.
And if you want to see, we can send it to you if you're interested.
Absolutely.
Or Bruce might have it as well.
Okay, perfect. I figured it was done. I just wanted to ask the question. And then I just want to say thanks for all the discussion on the assessments. I've actually never heard this much discussion on sewer assessments, and I've been to many sewer subcommittee meetings. So I definitely appreciate the transparency on these sewer assessments.
All right, with that notion in effect, and do we have any more comments from any of the sewer subcommittee members?
I have one member, Sakosha. So Mr. Lavery, thank you very much for your patience. I
No
know it's
problem.
taken a couple months to get here, so thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you for your patience too. We appreciate that. All right. I guess we're going to move on to the vote in regards to this. I'm going to make a motion that we accept the Oaks at East Shore Drive subdivision.
I'll
for
second the motion.
Sewer tie-in. Jamie?
Oh, yes.
Okay, and member Sakosha, yes. With that, I will make a motion for the resolution of the Coventry Sewer Subcommittee Resolution number 2021-05 to be read. So this states, whereas after examining the applications, designs, plans, and all other submitted documentation, the Coventry Sewer Subcommittee recommends that the town council approve the sewer extension application for the Oaks at East Shore Drive subdivision, Tyoke Ave, Assessors Plat 23, lots 47 and 47.1, and Assessors Plat 32, lot 152, such that the applicant shall sufficiently comply with all the technical requirements necessary per the town sewer ordinance and the town engineer's review comments. A separate residential sewer connection application for each new house must be submitted to the town sewer department for approval. Each new house lot will be subject to a residential betterment assessment in accordance with the town ordinances. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
All right, can we vote on that, please? Jen,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
and myself, yes. So with that, the resolution has been passed, and congratulations, Mr. Levery.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Have a great night.
All right.
You too.
Okay, on to new business. 5.1, discussion on identifying information that is helpful for subcommittee and staff to help pass on to the town council for tie-in requests. Discussion is open.
I just wanted to bring up the fact that sewer assessment, the transparency that happened tonight, certainly needs to go forward. Like I said, I mean, I've been to years worth of sewer subcommittee meetings, and I really have never heard that much discussion on sewer assessments. I think it would be very helpful to pass all of that on to the town council. The 75% credit that developers get, I do think that probably needs to be discussed further, because even though they are putting in the system, the town actually is taking over it. So any improvement to that line going forward, it's off of the development shoulders and it's on the town shoulders to take care of. So I don't know if the 75% credit is taking into that into consideration. I don't know if Jen, if you have anything else.
Yes, thank you. So I think we're probably going to keep learning along the way here. But a couple things would certainly be helpful, like that assessment information. One of the things that I have tried asking about in the past about capacity in certain lines. I'm going to try my best to ask it in the right way, because a few people have told me that it's so complex the way I'm asking it. So I'm gonna do my best here. I know that we have a process in place that exists kind of behind the scenes outside of the subcommittee. And maybe that's with Stephanie. And I know she's not on the panel to speak, and I can certainly follow up with Mr. Marchant and her offline. But we have a number of people come in requesting tie-in requests where we know in general we have a lot of capacity in general for everything that Coventry has that goes into the West Warwick treatment plant. But on individual lines, when someone comes in like tonight, for example, that has 33 properties that are going in and are going to have 3 to 4 bedrooms, it makes me wonder, what is the due diligence that was done? I'm not saying that it wasn't. I'm just curious about what is the due diligence done on a per line basis to make sure that that particular line will allow for all those new homes that we have, about to come onto that line.
I believe that that's probably a Bruce question, because he's probably the expertise in regards to that. And I'm sure that there's a calculation that was done in order to come to those numbers and arrive at that the East Shore Drive would be able to be sufficient to the capacity on that line. There's another line that runs in town that used to be a private line that we do question. And as time goes on, we've approved tie-ins to existing businesses that are tied in to move on to the gravity fed line instead of the pressure line, or I believe some sections of that other line are, that whole line is pressurized. So we've been moving people from that line over to our line.
Right, so to answer that question, so when that line was owned by the private entity, he controlled to some degree who could connect. So we would simply approve the application, but it would be up to that owner to whether the decision would be to allow the connection or not. But once we took that ownership over, that line now became part of our system, and it fell under the jurisdiction of our operation and maintenance plan, which is approved by DEM. And our current O&M plan does not allow any connections, new connections to that force main. So that's why we have been denying people's requests to connect to that force main, ever since the town took ownership. There are a couple old applications that were approved back when it was private that are still valid, and we're going to allow them to connect. But that's really it. So at this point, we're trying to move, if possible, when a lot is redeveloped, we're trying to move people off of that force main.
Right, or if there's some sort of change to the property, like I'm not trying to call anybody out, but Borelli's was a good example. They were on the old
Right.
main, and then they got moved to our newer existing main. And what that does is it lightens the load of capacity on that load in the timeline that pipeline is able to be used.
Right. Plus, if one of the reasons the town purchased that pump station was potentially to expand the sewer system down Route 3 into the commercial business area. So if that ever happens, we may need to get more capacity out of that Woodland Manor pump station. And one way to do that is to have the force main, just shorten it and have it discharge directly to Sandy Bottom Road. So at that point, when if the force main ever gets cut off at Sandy Bottom Road or further south, towards the McDonald's, now everybody who's connected from that point north will have to be switched to the gravity sewer. So if we can start making that, accomplishing that now through redevelopment, it'll only help us in the future. And then as far as Jen's question on capacity, when this development was first proposed, we did a quick capacity analysis for this whole system. So we took into account any existing developments that were connected to this line. And then we looked at the vacant parcels around this area, and we took into account, or tried to estimate how many homes could be built on that piece of land based on the acreage. And we just came up with a conceptual future peak flow. And in this case, since this sewer line is fairly steep, even though it's only an 8-inch, there was plenty of capacity because the slope is very steep. The average slope.
Thank you.
Does that help, Jen?
Yeah, so two things. On the comment about possible development on the around or in the pump house that you were just mentioning, maybe that's an item that we can pass on to Mr. Wazika for consideration in what he's putting together. And then secondly, in terms of the determining kind of that peak capacity, and then once you make that decision, Bruce, and you say, okay, we've looked at everything around us, we think things will be okay here, how does that then kind of continue getting monitored? Is that a calculation you have to do every time? Or like how do you know, like, the next development, because there's a bunch of houses going in over there, right? So we had it off of Sprague, and now we have this off of Old North Road. So as these new developments keep popping up, how do we have to do that every single time, or how does that work?
So right now, most of our lines, are major, major sewer lines. We don't have a large network of these small feeder lines. Most of the people on Washington Street and so I'll say Washington Street, they're tying into a major sewer collector with 30-inch, 24-inch pipes.
Right.
So there really aren't any capacity issues to watch right now. This line in particular, this 8-inch sewer, is probably the line that's closest to being near capacity at some point in the future. So we right now we don't do a lot of flow monitoring, but it's something that we'll have to do, in the future at some point.
Bruce, how big is the pipe that they're tapping into to discharge out of this plat?
Yeah, this is an 8-inch.
It's an 8-inch,
Yeah.
and then the 8 inch is, but what is the main in Tyoke Avenue? Is it a 24?
Well, this, right, so this one goes cross-country to Old North Road and then out to Tyoke, and that's an 18-inch at Tyoke.
Yeah.
So the 10-inch force main from Woodland Manor and this 8-inch from North Road, all tie into that 18-inch.
Right.
Additional comments if I could add?
So
Mike?
what a helpful question for the council to ask on every project is, what is the design capacity, maximum design capacity for this section of sewer that they're talking about? And will the addition of however many residential commercial units, was that factored into
Support
this
it.
capacity in
Yeah.
the design?
So when I'm thinking about this from town council side and approving these, what I'm thinking about is I don't want to approve something and then come back and find out later, like, okay, we didn't have capacity or something from the whatever process that's being done that I just don't know about. So I think having a little bit of visibility into what that process was is certainly very helpful, and maybe we can also help pass that on. I see another member of the council in our attendee list. Maybe we can also let member Shockley know about this as well. But Mr. Marchant, like you're saying, having just something that says this is what we've gone through. For example, we do something very similar with abatements, and whenever those come in, we ask questions on certain numbers and things like that. So maybe there's something we can do at the subcommittee level that says these are the things that were done. Bruce, like you were just mentioning, kind of like a checklist to say that these are all the things that have already been done on this, so we don't have to discuss it every time.
Right.
So
So
if
for
we
most
were
of our sewer lines, Weston and Sampson has already done that. These large sewer lines on Main Street and Washington Street, they're designed to service a very large area.
Right.
Very, like huge sections of the whole town.
Right now, I would say we're overbuilt by 20 times what we ever will use in the next
Right.
50 years. And Jenna, the other thing is maybe what you need to do would maybe help you understand, I guess, maybe the capacity in layman's terms is if you look at the sewer map and actually see where the sewage goes in town. So as an example, like Amgem comes down Hopkins Hill Road, it comes on Tyoke Avenue, and then it goes to the pumping station on Sandy Bottom Road. And then if you come up Tyoke Avenue a certain ways, let's say to the old Nino's, that sewage goes from there down to Sandy Bottom Road. And then up Tyoke Avenue, there's really nothing until you get to the other side of the hill, which gravity feeds down to West Warwick. So,
Right.
like,
Sorry. So last year we did some flow monitoring, or maybe it was the year before, we did some flow monitoring on Pulaski Street. So that's a 30-inch sewer. That's the main sewer that leaves town into West Warwick. It's just before one of the permanent meter installation, and that pipe rarely got above half capacity. The flows at peak times, the flow levels were maybe at the half pipe level, and the majority of the time it was maybe a third full.
Mhm.
So that there's quite a bit of capacity left.
right, it was half full and 15 miles of pipe attached to it, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, and it was only half full for probably, an instant, maybe an hour or less.
Okay, thank you. So I think we have talked about kind of two areas. Member LeBlanc, so I think
I have
what
a
we asked
couple
is,
other items too, Jen, if you don't mind, if I.
oh yeah, can I just make sure we close the first two out? I think we said we will be getting the assessment items in our town council packets going forward. And then having that information in the subcommittee, are we going to know that each time? I mean, really, there may be people coming in that we don't don't know the assessment at that point. Some people have come in to get a preliminary, I don't know what the term is, not sign off, but preliminary discussion. But I don't know, Mr. Marchant, how do we also ask to make sure that those numbers continue coming in this forum?
Well, my hesitation is only because I'm thinking in terms of whatever the formula is in the ordinance that already sets how that assessment is determined. If we have the information about the project and the number of units it's going to serve, then we'll be able to calculate it. If it's a preliminary discussion about a possible project that could be anywhere from 30 to 130 units, there's going to be a lot of questions as to what that assessment might ultimately be, depending on the scope of the development project. So I'm still learning this day by day, and these are some of the conversations I've had just briefly with Bruce and with Ed. But I think as we develop what that program is, we'll be able to have more confidence behind the program. So it'll be a lot easier to set correct expectations from the beginning, so that whether it's a developer or a homeowner, they know beforehand what their assessment's going to look like
Right.
before they start their project.
Jen, let me interject on that. So on the development part, that's kind of difficult until you actually do a complete layout and have a substantially complete design as to what you're doing. I think on our end, as a sewer subcommittee, we probably see more people that walk through the door that want to know, hey, I want to tie onto the sewer line. What's it going to cost me? What's my usage going to be? And we can't really answer that because we don't really know exactly what the calcs are. And the other thing is that those numbers for assessment tie-ins, I believe through the town council, are supposed to be being rediscussed at some point in time. And maybe you might have better insight on that, but you know, for the average person walking through the door, it's hard to give them an exact number without doing the calculations, you know, right here on site.
Well, yeah, so I think for clarification, I'm talking a little bit more about the tie-in requests. So if someone has a tie-in request, at that point, we should have the information for the assessment, right? So if we take out the preliminary discussion areas and lines that haven't even been built, can we request even at the subcommittee level to have whatever the assessment fee is in case we have questions at the subcommittee on all the tie-ins that come in? It's basically the same request that Mr. LeBlanc had for the town council meeting.
If there's a complete application when they request a tie-in where they give us all that information, then yes, we should be able to calculate all the fees and have that ready for everybody.
Yes.
Yep.
Because I mean, most homeowners or let's say a landlord that has a duplex, I mean, we know how many bedrooms they have when they're coming in for that application. So maybe it's something we need to add to the resolution and make note of it as we're moving forward. So this way everybody's on the same page as to what that costs.
Mhm.
I mean, that would definitely be more transparent than them opening the mail 3 months down the road and getting getting an invoice for a sewer assessment and not knowing exactly what it is. So.
Okay.
That makes sense. So
I certainly like that level of transparency for sure. Going through sewer subcommittee meeting minutes over the years, many times they actually at the sewer subcommittee level discussed the sewer enterprise fund financial statements and if it was healthy, how much debt was in. So that discussion was actually done at the sewer subcommittee level in the past. I'm not saying if it was done in the past, it needs to be done going forward, but the sewer subcommittee, to my knowledge, does work on the facilities plan update and provides input. And that actually needs to be updated in 2021. I'm not sure if other board members of this committee know that, but the last time it was done, it was in 2016, but it has to be done every 5 years. So that actually has to be done in 2021. So the reason why I bring that up is if in that plan, they talk about the streets that they want to go down, future plans. to know what streets to go down and where we should be, what we should be doing with the sewer program, we kind of need to know the financial health of the enterprise fund. So I just wanted to at least throw it out there for a suggestion. I also do think on a maybe quarterly basis, somebody from the sewer subcommittee or somebody from the town should be reaching out to West Warwick and asking them if they will be doing any upgrades at their treatment plants. Since we own 23% of the capacity of that treatment plant, as everybody knows, if they have a $15 million upgrade, that's millions of dollars that our sewer enterprise fund has to pay out. I just think that we should probably get on a proper cadence of asking that question.
To that point, I learned today that the town of Coventry has a voting seat on their board. So we should have a representative appointed to that board to keep us informed about all those things.
So, Mr. Marchant, that was me.
Well, as
That-
the
that was me
liaison or as a
until
voting
rec-
member of the board?
Yeah, no, I was a
Okay.
voting member
Okay,
just until November, because then technically I had to resign as a member and then I was appointed as a town council person, but I can't make that meeting anymore because I think it's like at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So, and it seemed
So
as though
that's a
nobody else
vacant
on the
position that
subcommittee
needs
could
to
do
be
it either.
appointed.
Sorry?
that's a vacant position that needs to be appointed now.
Yes, so so they either need to move the time of the meeting, which it's been at the same time for the last several years, or we need to get somebody on the committee that can attend it. It's the first Thursday of every month at 3 p.m.
Does the attendee need to be a member of the subcommittee, or can it be a staff member like myself or Ed?
I am not sure, actually. It's a good question.
And I actually have a follow-up to that. I would like to know who should be appointing that. Is it the town manager? Is it the town council? Is it the sewer subcommittee appointing the member? Because I think in the past, the sewer subcommittee had just appointed Jen,
Yeah,
but I don't know our bylaws associated with that seat. Who technically should be.
I believe the way that works, actually, if I remember the last time we appointed Jen to be on the West Warwick committee, we made the recommendation, just like we make recommendations for sewer tie-ins, and then the town council has to make that final approval because they are the actual sewer committee for the town.
That makes sense. I
Sewer
didn't know that. I didn't know if that actually had happened, but maybe it did.
yeah, I don't remember. It was almost 3 years ago now, so I'd have to go back and see.
And then my only last point that I wanted to bring up was it might be helpful for somebody on the town staff. Again, this is just a suggestion, but when it comes to the discussions that we have at the sewer subcommittee level, especially when it comes to the assessments, maybe list out the properties that were discussed, the assessment and the calculation behind those assessments, and then forward that memo to the town council so that they have that information when the sewer tie-in is discussed at the town council level. Those were my additional suggestions.
So, Jamie, would that pertain to the resolution that you voted on tonight? That when that goes to the town council, they'll have the backup of the basic, the developer's assessment of the 41,000 plus the base assessment for the bare land plus the betterment assessment for depending on how many rooms.
I think that would be very helpful to make a proper determination at the town council level, for sure.
I mean, that's fair since they're the sewer commission. They should have all the same information.
Also, Jimmy, we could only give an estimate for the betterment assessment because we don't know, how many
That'd be a
bedrooms are going to be
range.
built.
I completely agree. Estimate
Yeah.
works. It's a lot better than not receiving anything and
Yep.
then approving a sewer line.
Yep, sure.
All right. Do we have any other comments, discussions? I think that covers that. Can I have a motion to close new business?
Oh, I'm sorry. So we have not gone into, I didn't know that we were on 5.2 yet.
I thought we actually covered that with what we were talking about. I apologize. We'll move on to 5.2. Recap and comments on public sewer forum held on March 27th, 2021. Open for discussion.
So I know Glenn's chairman Skirka's not here, but I was going to say thank you. So I can certainly do that when he's at our next session. He attended, it was approximately a 2-hour session. and Mr. Wazika and Mr. Skirka, also Monique Houlier joined, so thank you, Monique. I thought it was extremely informative. I think it was the first time we've been able to hear from the public in a very educational way, as opposed to some of the, making people wait till the end of public comment and then, kind of trying to blurt out what they're trying to do. We opened it up throughout the session for people to ask questions and really hear about some of the concerns, as opposed to just commenting on something we voted on. So I personally, I felt like it went pretty well, just as a session itself. And I personally felt like I learned a lot. So I wanted to put a big thank you out there to Mr. Wazika and Monique and to Glenn for helping, interject and provide information. There's certainly a number of items that have surfaced that we want to, as a council, review before we take on new projects. And so there are going to be a couple of upcoming sessions that we talk about as a council, what we would like to see in the community moving forward. And as Mr. Marchant had mentioned, Mr. Wazika is now officially our administrative officer. And one of the projects he is working on is either addressing or finding a way or a plan to address many of the items that came out of that session. So I think we're kind of figuring out what to do next. And I know that it's been at a bit of a standstill on new pipelines. And we, personally speaking, I definitely have things that I need a better understanding of, and or questions that we've had that we've posed out to Mr. Wazika to help in our planning discussions that will help me personally, and I'm assuming the other counselors, make some decisions. But I do want to reiterate that just for anybody listening now or to this session later, there are no new pipelines right now. There's nothing in construction right now. And personally, I do want to and look forward to discussing kind of the future of this program before we start the next pipeline. So, so thank you to everybody involved with that. And I think a few people here were on that session. So, obviously I'll let them speak if they have any comments on the session as well.
I completely agree with Member Ludwig, everything that she said. I do think it might be important for Mr. Marchant if we could have another one of these sessions with you, so you can kind of hear our questions, hear our concerns, hear the public's questions and concerns. Hopefully we can do it in person rather than virtual. I think more people might attend if it's in person on a weekend or something. But a lot of good questions came out of it, but I'm looking forward to getting answers on the questions that were posed.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Okay. All right, with that, new business is closed. I'll make a motion to close new business.
I'll second it.
All right, take a vote. Jamie,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
and myself, aye. All right, we'll open up the sewer subcommittee meeting to public comment. Do we have any public comment out there?
We have a couple hands raised. Oh, there we go.
And I just let you into the meeting if you have a comment.
Oh, yes, thank you. Hello, Ann Dixon, 141 Perry Hill Road, Coventry, Rhode Island. I just want to let you know that I did have a 1-hour conversation with Mr. Glenn Skirka about a couple of weeks ago, and he told me that he needed a replacement for Miss Ludwig, so that there would be a representation between the sewer subcommittee in Coventry and the West Warwick treatment plant and program. And Mr. Wazika, who is our administrative officer, is going to take on that role. He has time to be there in the afternoon. So he's already agreed to do that in his role as administrative officer and also as the person who really owns right now the sewer program. So I think that was a good choice, and I know that he will be a very loyal and committed member. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other further comment? Public
Yep.
comment?
We have one more hand raised, Jerry Narkowitz. Hey, Cody, could you bring him in?
I'm trying, he's using an older version of Zoom, so it's not
Yeah.
allowing it. I'm gonna have to promote him to a panelist, I think.
Yeah,
Give me one
that's fine.
second.
All right, we're looking for a couple new members.
Mr. Narkowitz, you're in the meeting if you have a public comment.
Ben, do you know if he's hooked in?
Hey, Cody, he might be on his phone too. He was listed in the attendees twice and he still has his hand up.
All right, I allowed them both in.
Jerry?
Yep, am I here now?
Yep.
Ah, good, you guys got me. Hi, how are you guys?
Hi, Gary.
Hello.
How you doing this evening?
I'm doing good. How about you guys?
Good. Good. Could you state your name and your address for the record?
Sure, Jerry Narkowitz, and my address is 21 Beach Street, Coventry, Rhode Island.
Okay. What can we do for you? What can we do for you, Jerry?
I was at the town council meeting the other night, and I wanted to follow up with the sewer subcommittee. And I live on Beach Street, and I'm very involved with Lake Tioga. I'm the president of the Lake Tioga Association. I also sit on the Conservation Commission in town. I also do testing for URI and for DEM on bacterial levels and various other things. So I have some knowledge of what's going on here on the lake. And when I heard that there was an E1 pump system or a low pressure system coming in right on Dixie Road, which is on this side of the causeway, and I was happy. I was happy to see that because we've been wanting sewers in this area. Some people want sewers, and I spoke to Glenn over the weekend. I called him and asked him a question. He said, but would everybody want the sewers? And I said, no, not everybody would want the sewers. So I'm hoping, I'm actually praying, because there's a lot of people that have failed septic systems that are causing damage in the lake. And as we delay longer and longer, and like one of you on the board, I think Jen, said that there is no active construction, there are no sewer lines going in. There's nothing going on relative to anything, at least in this area. So I want to know, where is it going? And what can I tell the people who are part of the membership who are looking for this?
So, Mr. Narkowitz?
Yes.
So we do, so a couple things, and I was on the session on Monday. I believe that you also spoke. So we do have basically a number of follow-ups that came out of the sewer session that we did March 27th. And the program and planning, we have tasked Mr. Wazika, our new administrative officer, with putting together a plan around how to move this program forward based off of the feedback from that session. And then also, I know several of us have met with him individually to give some additional feedback just about information we need and possible economic considerations. So what we're doing over the next few months is we will be meeting as a council to discuss the future of the sewer program. So for example, there were some possible ways forward that were put out at that session a few weeks ago, where one is we don't continue development at all. There were multiple things that we said could possibly happen. We could continue development, in commercial and residential areas, or maybe only commercial areas. So right now we said before we can make a decision as a council, we need to have some of the big questions answered in terms of what are the benefits, pros and cons, for example, of each of those options that we laid out at the session. And we asked for that to be done in an open session so that we can discuss as a council how best to move forward. So we're actively working on that. We have someone assigned to that, like we've mentioned, Mr. Wazika, who's working on that plan, and that will be presented and continued discussion by the council in future sessions. And I'm not talking 6 months from now. I'm talking within the next, month or so. We're looking at bringing Mr. Wazika back in to have another discussion, having him on the agenda. So it is coming up. I'll say it's coming up, and your input and anyone from the public is absolutely something that we need. So I believe you said that I think you said you're on Beach Street.
Yes.
So I believe that you are in District 4, is that right?
Yes.
So my understanding is that Hillary Lima is the only person running. There is a early May voting process that will go through. And personally, I've spoken with Miss Lima, and she sounds very concerned and invested in the district and sewers. And so that might be a good person a few weeks from now to connect with after that election.
The only thing I would like to add, Mr. Knockowitz, during that sewer session that we had, the chairman, Mr. Skirka, he actually indicated, this kind of answers your question directly, I believe, because you're asking about a timetable. He said, even if we selected a street tomorrow, which isn't going to happen, but tomorrow. But he said, even if we did that, it would take about 2 years for the street to start getting dug up.
Right.
So I think that answers your question directly, because I think you wanted to know if it was going to be this year or in a couple months. But he did make that statement.
So I could direct the association to say, don't expect sewerage for a minimum of, like, it would be fair to say 5 years.
I wouldn't say 5, but I wouldn't say in a year. I would say most likely at least 2 years, no sewers are going to be installed in this area. That's what I would go with, based off of the expert, the chairman of the sewer subcommittee.
Boy. All right, we got another summer session coming up where I'm afraid of the bacteria level that we're going to see. But I guess we'll just have to hope and pray the lake doesn't get shut down again. Can I ask a little bit more of a legal question? I seem to remember reading in the DEM rules and regulations for septic systems and sewers that if sewers are deemed to be accessible, that legally a town is required to install those sewers within a reasonable period of time. Am I quoting an incorrect assumption about that law?
I would defer to legal for a legal
Right.
answer on that, but technically, I don't think there's any legal requirement to impose sewers on any municipality.
Or expand.
From personal knowledge,
What you get instead of that is perhaps in the cases of bad cases of pollution where the EPA gets involved or DEM, there can be a consent order and fines to clean it up, but they can't dictate the method you use to clean it up and abate the the problem. So if you can solve it with septic or cesspools or anything, as long as it's a viable solution, you have that option. It would take a very exceptional case for them to require sewers specifically.
Yeah, I just remember in environmentally sensitive areas that DM had come out with a statement at one point saying that a town should, at all avenues, make every effort to install sewage systems so that you protect the environmentally sensitive areas, and Lake Tioga being one of those. I thought DM had some edicts that allowed that to be expressed.
That may very well be their position and advocacy.
There is a DEM regulation 14.2 that states that if a sewer line goes by a residential property, and if a property owner cannot repair the septic system that is currently in place, they are legally required to connect to the sewer line. But that's a little different than what you're saying.
Right.
But that's the only legal requirement related to sewers and connecting that I'm personally knowledgeable about.
Yeah, it could very well be. I just
Jerry, I would think that your question that you're asking at this point in time, the way that DEM would probably handle something like that would be more on an individual basis in regards to the systems that are not working correctly, and getting the owners of those properties to bring the systems up to a more current standard.
Yeah, it's a very dicey situation, as you can imagine. If somebody has a failing septic system and there's going to be city sewerage in 3 years from now, and the system they've got to put in is a sand filter design, and the sand filter design is $35,000, which basically goes away when city sewerage comes by. It's a complex discussion. You can imagine.
Right. And they do have a 10-year deferment on a new septic system that they put in.
Yeah.
So that would be calculated into that type of program. Jerry, of your members, how many houses do you have calculated in your area that you guys represent, and how many of them are interested in sewers?
It's a really great question. Everyone, and here's the great answer. Every single one is interested in sewers. And then when you say, well, what about if it's $30,000? They say, I don't have $30,000, of course, and so the interest is there. The finances is a different story, as always.
So can I explain? I want to just interject on an installer's point of view, and as someone that lives in town, and I live on Tioga Avenue myself. When I got to go to somebody's house and I have to install a new. I'm sorry. Hello, Jerry. Can you hear me?
I'm still here.
Oh, I'm sorry. We had some conflicting noise in the background. I don't know if somebody has one of their mute buttons open at the moment. But when I hear somebody that needs to put a new septic system in at their house, unfortunately, me as a contractor, when I go there and I'm done installing that septic system, they got to pay me. And the bottomless sand filter usually ranges between $22,000 and $32,000 from the low side to the high side, depending on how many bedrooms you have in the house, and how big the system is, and how big of a footprint we can squeeze that system into. On a regular traditional septic system, which is like Elgin's or trenches, depending on your water table in your yard, you're looking at for a 3-bedroom, it's around $15,000 or $16,500 as a number. Yeah. So for someone to have to dish into their pocket and give me that money, it's a lot of money all at one time. The only benefit of the sewer coming by their house in an area like where you live directly on the lake is if that system was $16,000 or whether it was $30,000, the assessment, the town is picking up a loan program to extend them the loan to pay for that system, which is a lot nicer than them having to dish out that large amount of money, whether it be $16,000 or $32,000 over 20 years. And if they decide that in 10 years they don't want to live in Coventry and they want to move to, North Carolina or somewhere else, the next person that moves in picks up the rest of the tab on the usage of that sewer assessment, which is kind of nice. So whoever initially gets the immediate benefit of the sewer line there, at least their head's not held over a barrel to have to come up with $32,000, I guess is.
Yeah,
the more.
you're right.
So-
I would
So,
recommend.
I guess this goes back to Member LeBlanc's discussion earlier in regards to transparency. I believe in the past, when the sewer subcommittee was formed a number of years ago and we started installing more sewers in this town, I don't think the payment process was discussed to the town taxpayer that was going to have a sewer line slapped in front of their house. And it posed a big scare to a lot of people that, well, I don't need one. My septic system is working properly. I don't really need that. And, then that would go into the discussion of it would be deferred for 10 years or, yeah, I want the sewer because my septic system's failing and I need a $32,000 system and I only got to pay, $200 a quarter for it right at the moment. That's much more affordable than the other way. So, and when DEM shows up and says your septic system has failed, there's no sewer here, you need to come up with a way to correct this. This is a 30-day action notice for you to move forward and get this corrected. It's again, you're back in the position of it's a lot of money to try getting something corrected. So I don't know how anybody else. I don't know what anybody else's comment is in regards to that on the committee. But, it's just something I'm bringing.
I would like to add just two things to what you mentioned. The first thing, the deferment for 10 years gets thrown out a lot, and people will go up and they'll say, I have a septic, and either somebody from the town council or the sewer subcommittee will tell them, oh, well, don't worry about it. You have 10 years once the line goes by your house. But that's not actually true. And we got to be extremely careful. I'm not saying you, Mike, or Jen, I'm just saying in general, the town needs to be careful because that 10-year deferral is actually, even if their septic is working fine, they can get it tested and it's working just fine. If it's older than 10 years, that date of conformance, if that date is more than 10 years, when that sewer line goes by their house, they don't get a deferment. They have to connect right away, technically speaking, based off of our ordinance. So I just want to call that out. And then the second thing I wanted to call out was in your example, you were at a house that actually needed a brand new septic. But let's just say they lived on a street with 25 other houses on that street. And those 24 houses didn't need a septic. I don't think going down a line, bringing a line down that street, if they all have working septics, makes sense. I get your point that homeowner does have to come up with $20,000, but I don't think at the detriment of the other 24 homeowners on that street in a hypothetical. But just wanted to call that out.
Yeah, it's a very obviously an extremely difficult discussion to have with anybody, even though I know it's better for the quality of the lake. I know it's environmentally a better solution. People think with their pocketbooks, and I sure understand that. I sure understand it.
The average lifespan of an average septic system, I believe, and Bruce probably can give us a better timeline on it, but I think it is 15 or 20 years expectancy for the average life of a septic system.
Right. Yeah, the typical expectancy is 15 to 20 years,
So-
depending on the use.
So
We've seen them fail in 5 years.
Right. So Jamie, you can't, when you look at that, I know that you're looking at that as a determination as to whether to go down a street with the sewer line or not. The bottom line is if whether you have one or two down that street, it's inevitable that shortly down the road that more of them are probably going to need that sewer line also. And in Jerry's case, where he lives on Lake Tyoke, their septic systems, a lot of them, the old ones, it might be working okay today, but if we get 2 or 3 inches of rain tomorrow, they're not working. They're flooding into the lake, or same thing with Johnson's Pond. So areas like that are probably more important for us as a committee to look at as some of the expansion areas. Because if they're gonna have to go down the road somewhere and DEM comes down and says to them, hey, you need a new septic system, and they're gonna spend 32,000, and the line isn't there for them to hook up, and they're gonna spend the 32,000. I'd rather them spend the $32,000 and give it to the sewer commission in the town of Coventry than give it to a septic system contractor like myself, and then us not be able to expand the sewer line. So,
End of the day, I don't want to force residents out of their home because they're getting a hardship. And I certainly don't think a sewer program during a pandemic makes sense.
yeah. Well,
Well,
even
I
if we
will-
discuss,
I will
even if,
just- Yep, go ahead, sorry.
even Jamie, even if we were to move forward, like you said, it's not going to be for another 2 years, and by that time, we're probably going to be out of a pandemic. So,
Yeah.
Out of the pandemic with the hardship, no.
yep.
You know, just, I happen to know quite a bit about this section. My guess is you would be using low pressure pump systems, whether it's the E1 or any other type. And the construction in the material on this road and all the other roads is sand. I can't even imagine you hit a rock more than a foot in diameter. This would be the example of very easy construction, passing by houses every 50 foot on average of frontage, or thereabouts, 75 feet. And you have houses on both sides of the road all the way down. It would be one of the easiest construction areas going. However, I understand.
Yep. Bruce, when we do a project like that, like a project that's like off the Beach Street, I mean, we go around and we analyze everybody's septic systems that are currently in place, or do we just take it upon ourselves that we're going to install sewer lines down every street, and that's how we're going to do it in a section?
I think, for us to, justify the project to DEM, typically you'll take a look at the septic system records that are available. Typically you don't go out and physically inspect everybody's system, but you may take a look at the available records at DEM to see how old some of the systems are, just to see what's out there, see how many cesspools still exist, which some in that neighborhood, quite a few cesspools, I believe, still do exist.
They do. I would guess that the construction in this area, if you have 100 households that would be in the area, probably 10 are new,
Yep.
and maybe 20 have had relatively updated septic systems, and the rest are pretty antiquated. The one
Yep.
at my house, my system is about 30 years old. Works fine, but I know what you mean. If it rains, I don't flush toilets, and we don't do laundry.
Right. And if it's 30 years old, it was designed using the old standards, which don't provide the level of treatment,
Right.
which the new systems afford.
Right.
So Stephanie would know, but we probably get 1 to 2 phone calls a month from somebody in that neighborhood, asking when sewers are going to come,
Yeah,
because their system has failed, or they're buying a new house or selling the house.
right. There's an awful amount of people, I hear it when I go to the Lake Tioga Association meetings, who say, well, I thought we were going to have city sewage by now. I bought a house in this area because I like the area, and now I understand it's not going to be now, and it's not going to be in the near term, and we're not sure when it's going to be. It's a very tough conversation.
Yep. I want to just share a conversation that I had with somebody else, and it doesn't really have to do with exactly, Jerry, your situation. And Jamie, you'll probably appreciate this. So I went to a guy's house that I've known for 30 years, 32 years. And the guy he had a septic system, but it was old, you know? And the guy used to go in this house, and his son was a friend of mine, and the mother was a friend of mine. And they used to go in, take a shower, shut the shower water off while they were taking a shower, lather up, do their hair, turn the water back on, rinse off, and that was their shower. And, you know, and they did it for so long. They were just used to it. You know, it was a common everyday thing, and they just lived with it the way that it was. You know, they didn't really think anything of it. You know, they just decided that at that time, you know, we just don't want to really spend $10,000-$12,000 on a septic system. And, you know, I would say probably 15 years after that, when I got into this business, and that's when I was a kid, you know, I wound up going over there and I put a brand new septic system in for them, and they spent, you know, $10,000 or $12,000. And when I was done, I said to the guy, I said, listen, I know how you've been living in this house for the last X amount of years. When I'm done with this system, I want you to go in your house and I want you to take a half an hour long shower. I said, and then after that, I said, tomorrow, I said, I want you to give me a call and let me know how it was to have a half an hour long shower and not worry about filling up your leach field with water. And that's some of the quality of life that a sewer line, or in the case of the people down on Lake Tyoke, they would have if they either had a new septic system or a sewer line. And the sewer line is going to be a hell of a lot cheaper for them than the bottomless sand filter system. So I don't like to see it because I'd rather go install them. Obviously, I make money on installing that stuff, but from the town's perspective, I mean, I think it's a good project that we should probably look at. So that's
I would
it.
appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time, guys. Ladies, also, sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Have yourself a wonderful evening. Be safe, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks,
Thank
Jerry.
you.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Do we have any other public comment? All right.
There's no other comments.
Having no other comments, I'm gonna make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll
Can I get
second
a
the motion.
All right. Vote. Jamie?
Yes.
All right. Jen?
Yes,
All right. And myself, yes. All right. Everybody have a good evening.
thank
Good
you.